The Indian news media like nothing more than a good sting operation. So it is ironic that in a country where entire news bulletins and TV shows are built around such undercover investigations,
As times now, sting operation. Done sting operations.
when it was the media that got caught on camera, almost none of India's mainstream outlets reported it. The Cobra Post sting targeted some of the country's biggest media groups: The Times of India, India Today, TV18, the Hindustan Times, and the footage produced was damning.
You have to look neutral, as neutral as possible.
You have the biggest names in the Indian media, from the biggest English group to most prominent news houses, with their very glittering offices, and everybody just falling over backwards to accommodate an advertiser who would have editorial command, who would sort of shape the narrative, as it were.
I'm not trying to protect my hidden agenda. I'm keeping it very upfront.
Please understand here, this story is not just about paid news. It is something beyond. They agreed to defame the political rivals of the client. They agreed to take compensation in cash.
So if you are giving me a couple of rupees to talk positive about you, automatically my editorial is under pressure. Not to go deep negative.
And they even agreed to not only peddle an ideology, but also in many ways to polarize Indian society. So in those terms, this is beyond paid news, this is criminal behavior.
Unfortunately, it's not surprising. I've run a newspaper in India, and it was clear to me then that was happening. There are rumors about how you can get a package of editorials written on the topic the way you want it written for money. So it's not surprising. What is surprising is the amount of money involved, the nature of what was being asked to be done, which is to kind of really interfere, if you will, in an election, in what is the largest democracy in the world.
Cobra Post called its expose Operation 136. That number refers to India's ranking in the media watchdog Reporters Without Borders' 2017 World Press Freedom Index. It's well down the list and has since slipped in the 2018 rankings to 138. Cobra Post's editor-in-chief Anirudh Bahal has a reputation as the master of the sting. He's been at it for more than 20 years. In 1997, he uncovered rampant match-fixing in Indian cricket. In 2000, he ran an investigation of Indian MPs showing how they solicited bribes for defense contracts. In 2003, Bahal founded Cobra Post and has since overseen numerous undercover investigations. They have made him rather unpopular in certain circles.
First thing, I do not believe in sting operations. As an editor and somebody who is a co-founder of a media company, I don't believe in sting operations except as a very last resort. And by that I mean when you have exhausted all the options, which includes giving the opposite party as many options to respond instead of just exposing them suddenly for all the world to see. That would be, to me, tantamount to like a policing operation or raiding somebody without giving them adequate space.
Cobra Post is a small non-profit organization. It is easy game. Nobody comments when, say, big channels like even Aaj Tak over the last 2 years has done possibly 70, if not more, hidden camera stories. Nobody talks about that. So, I mean, it becomes a sort of news angle to chew every time something significant is done, and it is really a spurious debate.
Cobra Post's undercover reporter Pushp Sharma approached his media targets with a detailed proposal and a fake persona. He presented himself as Acharya Atal, an activist straddling the line between politics and religion. At the heart of his proposal was a campaign to push Hindutva, the brand of Hindu nationalism for which India's ruling party, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's BJP, has become known. On the tape, he made it clear that he was pushing Hindutva to divide Indian voters.
We can polarize or do some nasty kind of things.
And that his campaign was timed to have an effect on the general elections coming up in 2019.
So Hindutva is basically India for the Hindus, by the Hindus, of the Hindus. It can be compared to white nationalism and white supremacy. So this is Hindu supremacy. This entire exercise, this whole sting, is basically a way of showing you that the media is so eager. The media is a willing participant, as it were. At least That's what, what comes across in these videos.
The same kind of sting, for example, could have been done with people who did not support the Hindutva or the Hindu argument. You see, when money goes beyond a certain volume, I don't see many of these big media houses saying no. Had the same exercise been repeated, say with people who oppose the Hindutva, the results would have been pretty much the same.
Operation 136 was met with silence from most of India's mainstream outlets. They hardly covered it. Of the outlets targeted, 4 took legal steps, obtaining injunctions or issuing legal notices to Cobra Post, forcing the site to take down some of its videos. The India Today group, whose vice chairperson, Kalli Puri, was caught on camera, said the investigation was, quote, riddled with irresponsible and brazenly false statements designed to malign the company's reputation. India's largest media conglomerate, the Times Group, took a different tack. After its managing director Vineet Jain appeared on tape, the company announced the video had been doctored and that in fact the Times Group had been conducting its own reverse sting on Cobra Post when the undercover filming took place.
The idea of a reverse sting is laughable simply because it's like being caught speeding by a police officer and telling him I was testing your cameras. So that makes no sense. It's a very poor defense of what was on tape. And other media companies have said the tapes are doctored, it doesn't show the full picture. But what it shows is quite damning.
I'm not surprised that it has not received the kind of play that the conductors of the sting would have wished. A, given the antecedents of this journalist, and B, the way the whole thing was set up, i.e. only targeting a political view, I'm not surprised that it got the kind of play it did.
The suspicion that Indian media outlets can be bought is not new. So for many, the Cobra Post sting simply confirmed what they had long suspected, and it did so at an already problematic time for Indian journalism. In the 4 years of the Narendra Modi government, polarization across the media has grown more extreme, the voices more shrill. The hounding of journalists by online mobs,
When did the death threats start coming?
self-censorship in newsrooms, the killings of journalists, especially in smaller cities away from the spotlight of Delhi and Mumbai. Most of the news about India's media has not been good.
India's role in the pantheon of free press is continuing to fall. To give you an example, Afghanistan, where there is a lot of terrorism, there's war, and journalists actually being killed in acts of violence, is ranked 118, well ahead of India in press freedom.
Here, there are media platforms promising to influence elections for you, and they are licensed companies, television companies and licensed newspapers. After the story, do you see them giving a public service? You don't. So that is the essential story about you are a public service. You are not doing public service. In fact, your inclination to do criminal acts is evident for all to see.